My lesson evolved from our trip to London when we were looking at a lot of images that are handmade, and I was thinking about the communication and exchange that happened on the Silk Road. It's very similar to Santa Monica. There's also a place where people gather from different areas and have exchange, which is cultural, which is food, which is linguistic, which is art, it's visual. So I wanted to explore how communication has shifted from the time of the Silk Road and to give students a sense of what it might be like to be a traveler at that time. My students don't experience earlier forms of communication. It's so hard for them to visualize. So I wanted them to write a letter by hand in the same way that people have been doing for centuries, and then to base a visual image on that letter. So I wanted them to have both the linguistic experience, the experience of trying to put their thoughts in order by hand in a private way, directed to someone that they trust, and in the same way that a Silk Road traveler would have an opportunity, if they were literate, to record their ideas. And I wanted them to translate it into an image. So thank you for everyone for getting your name tags. The program is going to be, I'm going to talk a little bit, maybe 10 minutes max, but at the end of what I'm talking about, I'd really like you to share what this project was like with our esteemed visitors, because this is the registration of the project at the school. So if you go on a grant program that's sponsored by someone, they're like, okay, that was cool for you, but like, how does that impact at the school site? Like, what is the benefit? So this is a little bit like, those were the seeds, those were the ingredients, and this is what we cooked with it, if that's not too weird of an analogy. So Karen and Sherry, thank you for coming.
Thanks.
I mean, and to be able to travel for 2 months internationally with people and still have like this affection and respect for you, like I'm honored to have you here, and I'm honored to be part of this. And part of why I'm so nervous is because I just have this like A student, like I want to please you. I want this to be, as good as the trip was for me. So I'm going to describe the trip a little bit, but I really value school. I've spent my whole life in school, and I've had lots of different teachers, and many of them have been kind of forgettable, probably like, maybe I was interested in the subject matter, or maybe I wasn't, and some people were great, and stuff I wasn't that interested in, I got access through their good teaching. And I feel like you are excellent teachers, and you have given us such a great curriculum. When we were in London, we often talked about how it was a grad school curriculum, and I've been to grad school, and it was very similar. There's a high expectation of independence, there's rigorous study, there's communication, there's conversation, and there's research. So for me, it's been one of the most impactful experiences in my life. So it helps me as a teacher, as a human, as an artist. I think that we are what we consume, and that was like very quality time. And I'm going to carry that with me. So I want to also share that with my students. So just so you know, we started studying about a year before. We did a lot of Zooms. And I was trying to think, like, how am I going to make this sound good to Gen Z people? Like, one of the highlights for me was ancient Chinese instrument concert at Berkeley. That sounds maybe not so interesting, but these are people who have been studying these instruments. This Gus Harper has been studying since 8th grade, and he is a graduate student now, and he showed us how these instruments were played and how they might have sounded, and they did improvisation. So we started with that. We had multiple books. We talked to the authors on Zoom. It was very high access the entire time. So I love being around smart people and people who know what they're talking about. And that was a lot of the entire trip. So once we got there, we had a backstage pass. We went to a special place in the British Library, which again, for you, you might be like, libraries, why? But for me, they're like a place that I've always loved. So we go to the employees' entrance. We hear from people who are working on the Dunhuang project. We hear from people who have been studying this for decades and can contextualize it really, really easily. We went to Oxford, and this is a new history of the world, Silk Roads. This guy's a rock star academic. He's literally a prince. He's literally a prince. He's a Croatian prince. And he had lunch with us. And we talked to him. And this is also, if you're interested in the Silk Road, one of the major people, Susan Whitfield, we got to talk to her. Another highlight for me was traveling with Berkeley professor Sanjat. I mean, if you want to think of someone who's just whip smart and very knowledgeable and who does archaeology in Uzbekistan. I mean, she's so impressive. And we would say, can you tell us about the spread of Buddhism in Southeast Asia? And she would just whip up a slideshow that made it very accessible. And whenever we had questions, she also had these super friends, academics, Dr. Osmond. He talked to us about coins. I'll never look at money the same way again, because he told us so much about like how currency is manufactured and how do you determine where it's spent, ancient times. Hard for us to imagine. Another few things that we did is we spent some time at the British Museum. We got to see work that was in the Dunhuang Cave. So again, backstage pass. Hey, you can go in the special area where they never let people see, where they literally don't let the light touch these objects. Here, you can see these. So I have my list of highlights. The Foundling Museum, we did some work in when we were planning our lessons. The last week was for the lessons. I never would have found that place without that experience. The Aga Khan Library, phenomenal people again, so welcoming, walked us through this exquisite Quran exhibit with the curator, special private tour. That was very exceptional. The Sogdian reenactment, I had never heard of this group of people. This person, you know how there's Civil War reenactments? He does Sogdian reenactments. So they're trying to do studies. What did these people wear? How did they travel through time? We went to Cambridge. We saw Alexander Green lecture. She's a curator of Southeast Asia. So these are people who are internationally known for this. I don't like A-list because that has a celebrity, and I'm not into celebrities. But for my world, this was like a dream. So this is where the project came from. So when I was there, looking at all these ancient things, this is 1,000 years old, some human put marks on this. What could I do with students that would make sense? And I thought a lot about the way we communicate now versus even 50 years ago or 25 years ago. And I wanted to do something that I kind of think of as like the opposite of AI, like a specific, meaningful meditation, like one-to-one address. And I think when I graduated from high school, we did not have the internet. So we wrote letters. And I feel like there's something very moving about having a private correspondence that's just directed to one person. And how could that become a visual image? So that's what this project was based on. So some of the things that we did, we had the first day of school, I had them write a letter to your future self in a month. So I'm going to ask you in about 2 minutes, like what you thought about this project. So I'm reviewing if any of these things are something that you want to discuss. We did the blackout poetry. We did telestrations. Sherry suggested that project. We're going to document it. I read the Armistead Maupin's Dear Mama letter from the late 70s, and that was the day that you wrote your letter. And then we did some sketches and some midpoint projects. So what I've noticed in this time period is I thought initially when we were going to have a show, is like, we put up the letters, and it quickly, at least from my perspective, seemed like people wanted to keep the letters private. So I never read them. But maybe that's something that you can talk about, like if you've had that experience or not. And also that I guess there's not text in these, which is totally fine. But initially I thought that there might be. So those are some changes I noticed. So students, what did this bring out for you? Like, what was your experience? Catherine?
I guess for me it was thinking about, since the letter is kind of, like communicative, like it's trying to figure out like how to tell like the story of like your letter and what kind of like letter that it was. If it's like, a statement versus like a inquiry and I guess just trying to figure out like how grounded in reality versus how grounded in like, the past versus, like fiction between like the two of you and like something like symbolic. So trying to figure out like how you want to communicate what you're communicating.
Okay. Olive and then Cayman and Emmy.
I think that the letters for each person had a different meaning. For me personally, you could choose to write about the past, the present, or the future. So I decided to write to the future, to my little brother, who's 8 years old, because he means a lot to me. And within this letter, I gave him the message of, in 9 years, when you're my age, here, maybe these words will help you to guide through your 17-year-old teenage life that I'm guiding through right now, because right now I can give you the perspective, and then I will be 9 years older than you are when you're 17, so this will be a different perspective. And I think that the letter also had something really personal, because it's an object and it's like a gift you can give to a person, and the content, they can hold it, they can keep it, and they can reread it. So it really has a meaning to it that doesn't go away.
Yeah, like that physicality, like the cache of letters from the library cave, there's something very moving about that for me. That was a big inspiration for this project. These letters that were never delivered, the physicality of it, the fragility. Cayman and then Emmy.
This project was very, I guess, it became something way more important than I thought it was going to be originally. I mean, the prompt was already, intriguing, but I think one of the main reasons that I make art is because I cannot verbalize or put into words the things that I want to say. And so this was more of just, a combination of both. But then also, with a letter, you don't have the context. You can only have as much context as you can describe with words. You don't have body language and tone of voice and actually looking at someone face to face. So I don't know, it was an interesting separation.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about that too, how it compares to a message, like a text message or a DM. I feel there's so much missing from the comparison on a one-on-one conversation. I also feel you can tell, was someone tired when they were writing? Are they running out of room? The physical, it slows us down because we're all used to typing. Emmy?
This project was a very reflective space for me. It was extremely meditative, because every minute that I was painting, I was thinking about what I wrote about and kind of exploring what I thought their perspective might be versus how my experiences changed it. So overall, I think my mindset when I started the letter and wrote the letter did a complete 360.
Oh.
My painting, I had really thought more deeply about the meaning of it.
Okay, I'm so intrigued. Suzu and then Harper.
Well, you were talking earlier about the difference between letters and then texting and then also face-to-face. I feel one big thing is with texting and even in person, I feel there's a lot less intention and thought that goes into your words, whereas when you sit down to write a letter to someone, you have to like Emmy was saying, it's a lot more retrospective. You have to think about what you want to say and how you want to say it a lot more. So I feel that was a little challenge.
Yeah, there's almost this preparation period for it. I'm going to bake a cake. I'm going to, I need to gather and then I need to be centered. Harper?
I feel like this piece made me like very like reflective. Like while I was writing the letter, I was thinking, because I wrote a letter to my mom, so I was thinking a lot about like the past. So it made me kind of very reflective on like my experiences up to this point.
Ike, and then Eileen.
I think also like with the differences between like a letter and let's say a text, a letter is not a lot more like permanent. You have to like prepare for it. You can't just like do it like callously. You have to think about it a lot, especially if you're writing with ink. You can't really take back what you like say and stuff. And so you have to think a lot more. And like comparing it to just talking to people, it's like forever immortalized what you've said. It can't be contaminated by like memory or like feelings or whatever, because like what you said is there, they get to look at it like forever.
Yeah, thank you. Eileen?
I think like the idea of like writing letters feels like nostalgic. I mean, it's because it's something like probably most of us only did when we were kids, or like once a year or something. So I feel like just writing it like put me in a nostalgic mood almost. So there's a lot of like nostalgia in my piece at least, and in my letter. But I feel like writing the letter, like it didn't necessarily push me to like I never told the person what I wrote or like gave the letter to them, but it does, like everyone said, like make you think about whatever it is or whoever it is, like in a more like I don't know, in a more vulnerable way. I think also knowing that you don't have to share it.
Okay.
Other thoughts about translating the words of the letter? Kate?
I definitely found that this project was very interesting in turning words into an image, because like you had to go beyond, at least for me, what like I wrote in the letter, and to like more thinking about my thoughts and feelings towards the person and expressing that through images rather than like the letter is like I'm speaking to you, this is what I'm saying to you, and then the piece was me turning that feeling into an image, which I thought was an interesting way to think about them and stuff.
Thank you. Other thoughts? Yeah. Alice.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting to first use words and write something, and then use art. It was like you had the thoughts in the letter and how you were feeling it or seeing it. For me, it was a relationship, so it needed both the words and how I was feeling and seeing it, and it made it very complete to have both on the same subject.
Thank you. Anything else before we start to look at some work? Was this hard or challenging or not? What was the hardest thing? Catherine?
For me, I tried to, like, I guess make my piece in a style that normally I don't really do, and with a medium that I've never really worked with before, using, a new technique to, like, render and shape the skin. And so for me, the most difficult part, I think, was just trying to pull everything together on a technical side while still being, like, true to, the intentions and feelings that I, like, had with my letter. And, I think also just, like, a challenging part with the letter itself was when given the opportunity to, like, be more thoughtful and, like, given the opportunity to just, like, slow down when thinking about and when putting words and ideas into the world, because when you talk and when you text, everything's so, like, immediate.
Right.
And so I'm, I guess, trying to figure out if, the opportunity to, spend more time and be more thoughtful, if that makes it more or less genuine, because it's like, is this extra level of processing that you, like, undergo, does that affect how from, like, the heart it is? Because, like, what if that's, like, something that's, like, so manufactured that it just, like, ceases to, like, have, like, real feeling behind it? And so, I think because of, like, the effort put into, like, both the letter and the piece, it's trying to figure out how to balance, like, is this, like, the realist that I can be, or is it, like, something that I'm, like, trying too hard for almost and, like, putting up airs?
Yeah, I understand that. I think part of it for me is, like, thinking about how previous humans communicated, you know? Like your generation was born into the world of social media, but that's very new. So I think kind of reenacting how other people might communicate, even if that letter's not delivered, I think it can give us insight on how things were before we were born, possibly a little bit, tiny bit. Okay, anyone else want to add anything? Okay, we're going to take 5 minutes and get some more food. We'll figure out how many pieces we have, and we'll start with the critique.
We're at 11:30. Possible that we could take another break then, switch out. So that's.
Alrighty. Yeah. Sort of how we're gonna do this is just because we're doing 2 minutes a person, just to make sure we get everyone. But just sort of talk about your artist statement and kind of summarize it for us.
Yeah, so I wrote my letter to my brother, and I think when I wrote the letter, I honestly, it was pretty casual. I was more kind of catching up with him, but I think when I started the piece is like when I thought more deeply about like our relationship, I guess, and like sort of like it was nostalgic, so kind of the playfulness of like our childhood and stuff, but also I think the like characters that I ended up drawing, like their like ambiguity, I guess, in a way. I think the way I processed it was like that's sort of how I see my brother. Like I don't see, and I think that's how we see each other. Like we don't think of each other as like, I don't even think of him as like a guy or like a real person. Mm-hmm. He's just like an extension of me and like just this like being. And so like I think that's how I like represented us within those characters. Yeah, I think like once you know someone that well, like they just sort of melt into your life. Like they're not anything like, you don't think of them as a human. But yeah.
I also love that you decided to add objects in. I feel like it makes it seem more like a continuation of memory, like throughout the years that you've known your brother. I think it really adds to just sort of the memory and like lifelong connection that you have.
Yeah. Is there like a meaning or intention behind each of the objects?
Yeah, I mean, I think if he saw it, like he would know exactly what every
Yeah.
single thing
What's this
means.
spinning wheel?
That's a like a yarn spinner, and our grandparents are like from Finland, are like they do that craft thing, and so that was always like in our house, and like we would just play with this.
Thank you.
So I drew this for my little brother. I wrote his letter also for him, for his future self. But since I can only give it to him like in 9 years when he's 17, I wanted to draw something for him he can enjoy now, and I can give to him as a gift now. So, after endless discussions with him about his favorite monster in the entire world, Godzilla, I chose to draw it, and to draw this picture that he showed me, wanted me to print for him, put it on his wall, be like, oh my god, I want that. And I was like, I'm so sorry, I don't think the printer can do that. So, as a surprise, I did it for him. And I gave it to him last Friday because it was a German tradition called Nikolaus, where there are like gifts. And he unwrapped the gift and he went like, oh, and he didn't even know that I drew it for him at first. He first thought like Santa brought it or something. But I was like, no, Kino, my little brother, I did this for you. And he wanted to put it up on the living room and everything. But yeah, so I'm very glad that I got to make something for him, even like this big of a size, with so many details, with like all like the lights and everything, which I really experimented with, because I think that was the hardest part to, with acrylic, to convince like viewers that it has like a shiny effect. But I think I did good work, and he really enjoyed it as well. So I was very glad to make this big art piece for my little brother.
You wrote your letter to him as well?
Yeah.
What was the content? Just describing life?
The content was like, hey, now you're 17 and I'm 17 right now, since I will be with him in the future. And I was like, whatever you're going through right now, you can always talk to me. You can always talk to my parents, and I know what it's like. But whatever you do, you're doing it right, and trust your heart.
Okay, are we instituting clapping for everyone? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. These deserve clap.
Yes.
I made this piece. I wrote my letter to my grandma. She lives in Tucson, Arizona, and she has horses and donkeys, and currently a bird and a dog. Since she lives in Arizona, I don't see her too often. She usually comes and visits us here, and it's harder for my family to go and visit her because we're a family of 5, and Tucson is kind of like a drive or fly situation, so it's kind of difficult to get there. But the content of my letter was basically a thank you and kind of an apology, because I love my grandma so much, and she is an artist, and she kind of inspired me to do art. We were like usually bonding by doing art. So I want to appreciate her for that. The mountains and the sun and the rocks and such are taken from her art. So I tried to incorporate parts of her into it, and that's her horse Julieta. And the background is Tucson. But the apology, I guess, was for not reaching out as much as I could have. She lives alone with all of her animals, so I can imagine it gets kind of lonesome over there. But I know she always leaves me these long voicemails or texts me as much as she can. So I guess I apologize a little bit for maybe not reaching out to her as much as I could have over the years. I try a lot harder now, but I guess when I was like little, or like I was able to text people when I was like 10 years old, and I guess I wish I spent more of those text messages with my grandma. So yeah.
I think it's hard not to take like a constant for granted, especially when you're younger, and this just shows so much of your appreciation. Is this for her?
Yeah, I'm actually visiting. We're driving up there over winter break, and I'm gonna give it to her.
Bye.
Sideways?
Yeah. So this is my piece. I wrote it to a friend that I was very close to that I ended up kind of drifting away from, and my letter kind of explored like all of the emotions I felt through that process. And I painted cookies because that was like kind of one of our routines. Like every weekend we would bake, but we kind of sucked at baking. And I guess like the metaphor there is that like it was like a routine that we both enjoyed, but we were really good at sustaining it. Yeah, and it was like kind of difficult because I was thinking about the letter a lot while I was painting it, and it was kind of just weird. And my mindset changed like a lot through like exploring that experience. And I was originally going to give it to him, but then I was like, I can't, so it is so easy.
From away, but when you look at it from the side,
it's absolutely perfect.
So such a mundane, like, picture to paint, but so much meaning.
Mm-hmm.
How does your, like, you say your mindset, or like your kind of, your thoughts, like, changed over the course? Like, what was that transformation?
I guess like the way I always viewed the situation was kind of like turbulent. Like I never really like accepted it fully prior to this project, and like as I was painting and thinking about it, I kind of like worked through all of my emotions and like kind of slowly accepted it while I was painting.
So, I painted my letter for my brother, who is in college right now. And so it's kind of representing him leaving. But my my letter was kind of about, we were never really close ever, despite we're only 2 years apart, so most people expect us to be close, like if not fighting a lot or anything, like, but we just never talked to each other. So I didn't expect to miss him when he left as much as I did, but it's also this weird thing where part of me doesn't notice he's gone sometimes, like when he'll come back and then leave, it's like very strange to me, so the piece was just kind of supposed to represent him leaving, I guess. I don't know.
I like that you decided to do the two birds of different species of birds, or I guess, was that like an intentional thing, or like does it symbolize anything?
It's roughly supposed to symbolize, like, I gave the one that's supposed to be him more patterns because he was kind of always the prodigy of my family, and then I'm like the simpler one.
Catherine?
Oh, I was also going to ask about the different birds, but I mean, do you think that like him being? Oh, I know that's too much of a therapy question. No, I really like this. Did you do like an underpainting?
No.
It looks good.
Thank you.
Do you know the song Two Birds and a Liar?
Everybody says that. I have heard it, and I do see why everyone says that.
Okay, so I wrote my letter to my mom, and it was just kind of like reflecting on like everything she's done for me over the years, and like the way that like she's helped me as I've grown older. And as I was writing it, I was just kind of like thinking about like the way that she's affected me, and I was thinking like that she really loves to read, and I like kind of see that that's like been like passed on to me because I really like that. So I just kind of wanted to have two sides, one when I was younger and we would go to the library together, and now that I'm older and I'm reading by myself.
Has she seen this yet?
Yes. I don't think I showed her the full one. Well, no, because I had the full one here, but I don't think I showed her the finished one yet.
Did you show her the letter?
She's not gonna read the letter.
Really? I feel like most parents, I mean, there's nothing more important than their child.
I didn't give it to her at first, and I think I misplaced it. It's somewhere in my room, but I might have forgotten where I put it.
Yes.
I might give it to her eventually. I just need to find it.
What was the inspiration behind the flower that kind of grows?
That one I kind of wanted to like represent growth. So the largest flower is a sunflower. I don't know how sunflowers grow, but I just assumed like other flowers. And like sunflowers kind of represent like joy and like, I don't know the exact like whatever like literary representations they've used, but to me they represent like joy and happiness, so I wanted to show how that's like grown over the years.
What kind of books did you read with your mom?
We read like there was like a ton of picture books in my house, so we read like a bunch of the books that are just like all of the cute little animals and they were doing things. But then we would also just like when I started to get older, just go to the library together, and then like I would pick out books, and then I always feel like I can like talk to her about what's happened in the books when it's like crazy.
Yeah. Also, I feel like reading as a child and reading now, it's two completely different things. As someone who has, like, I've had periods of time where I didn't read at all, and then, like, went back, and the way that I read has completely changed, because when you're younger, you're kind of, like, immersing yourself in this, like, world, most of the time fiction, and all of, like, your imagination has way, I guess there are less boundaries, so it's more imaginative, more freedom.
So I wrote my letter to my older brother. He's a freshman in college in Philadelphia right now. We've always been really close. We've done pretty much everything together. I had classes with him before on multiple occasions. We're in the same sport, so I spent like every minute of every day pretty much with him unless we were at home. Although we spent a lot of time together, we were pretty silent usually, but it was more of like, even though we're not talking, like I always had this person looking out for me. And so we always did a lot of stuff together, one of which was watching a lot of Disney films because my parents really liked Disney. So I had a hard time picking what to paint exactly. I redid it I think 2 times, but I ended up settling on this over break when he was here for Thanksgiving. And as like a reminder of when we were younger and when we were still together, as kind of like a tribute almost. And there's a lot of like blues and purples because his favorite color is purple, which I learned recently. Because like that's just like trivial stuff that you don't seem to like remember to ask every once in a while. But yeah.
Are you guys like looking at a poster of the movie or like in a movie theater, or what's the
My thought was, yeah, looking at a poster of the movie.
Yeah. I love the light mood you chose for the text and then the character. I feel like with the context of the surroundings, it looks like it's glowing a little bit.
I really like how like simple you and him are, like, I don't know, your figures are, because I think it's like childlike and
So I made this. It was a letter to my grandma, who's gone, but it was, I think like right before the letter was my mom's birthday, and she found a video of my grandma like just like speaking to her like right before she died about like, I don't know, like life lessons and like not letting people get to you. And it made her really happy. You can smudge it, I don't.
It's very beautiful.
It is, it's gorgeous. So I thanked my grandma in the letter for just like, I don't know, helping my mom and just continuing to help her even though she's gone. So I made a picture of a woman holding her kid and her mom, which you can't see, like braiding her hair while she's asleep. I wanted to only show the mom's face because, I don't know, I think a lot of my life revolves around my mom, and I don't know, I think it's a very strong memory because I got to see how happy it made my mom, and it just, I don't know, it makes it very real whenever the fact that she doesn't have her mom anymore, so.
Yeah, I think such like a selfless figure that is someone's mom, sometimes it's hard to see through the perspective of like, this woman was once a daughter also,
Yes.
and now even though she's my mother, there was once a person who was that big, like of an influential figure in her life, and that influence doesn't leave even if that person is not physically there anymore. Like whatever experiences that you have, their influence stays. Thank you.
So this is my piece. I wrote to my grandmother. In my letter, my grandmother has never really left her small town, and she's never come to the West Coast. So I kind of got to thinking about all the things she's never seen and the things she may never see. And one of the big things that is kind of a staple here is the fishing industry. But my grandmother and my grandfather always had gardens in their backyard and still do. So I kind of wanted to put the level of care that they give to their garden into an industry that's specific to the Pacific Ocean. So I wanted to create a very like familiar space and sort of play with more exaggerated lighting in it, just to sort of get that warmth and the contrast of ideals and values and like how we value the spaces we inhabit. Yeah.
I will never get over how amazing this is.
Thank you.
But is this inspired from like a, or did you take inspiration from like a real fish market or like an exact?
So I didn't work off of one photo. I sort of pulled from a bunch of different fish markets, but mostly Pike's Place in Seattle. But yeah, so this is sort of a compilation of a bunch of different photos. I try not to work off of just one. Yeah.
I think like the intent that you had of showing like how we value and view our spaces is like so like clear, and it's just like really astounding to me because just like the little details of how you can see how the fishery, it has like a place where they like steam up fish, and you can see like the menu of like where to order like steamed crab or like halibut or something.
Yeah.
Where they fry it like there, and then like the way that you can see how like wet the floor is, and the sign, and it's just all like it's just this sort of like perfect like haiku almost of like or like vignette of like this sort of Pacific Northwest fish market. I don't know. I really like it because it just looks so like lived in, but like, perfectly.
Thank you.
I saw Olive and Sawyer.
I just think that the depth you included in all of the details, it's amazing. It's incredible to look at because with the depth, it feels like it's a photo, not a drawing. You're really there, and especially also the lighting and the details you drew. So it comes off so realistic, which is really astonishing. Are you planning to? Did you show it to your grandparents?
No, I haven't shown it to my grandparents. Although I have a lot of my family members that follow me on my Instagram, so they've probably shown her by now. But yeah, I should, honestly.
This in person is so much different than the photo.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Sawyer? I was just wondering what media you used.
So I used watercolor and then colored, well, it was actually pen drawing first and then watercolor and then colored pencil on top of all of that.
I just wanted to say, I was like, because like we've seen the whole process, and I was kind of sad when you said that you'd color it because it looked so good, like just with the pen. But I think like now seeing it, it's like it added life to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a hard one to follow. Let's take like a 3-minute break so people can stretch their legs, maybe get some more food, be comfortable.
Trying to escape this.
Oh, hello. So basically, I wrote my letter to my dad, who I've had like limited contact with him over the past few years, and I just kind of updated him on my life. I've changed a lot. I've had a lot of personal growth, and my tastes have changed, but also like what I wanted to highlight with this was like the new relationships I have in my life that are very important to me. So like my friends, but it's a portrait of me and my girlfriend on Halloween. It was pretty recent, but it was just kind of like a moment, like a night that I wanted to capture and immortalize. And I've also been playing with like fibers and strings for like a little bit over a year now. So this is kind of just like, I guess, a product of that evolution. And like some of the strings are looser, but they're layered over the ones that I've pulled tight to show both like tension of our chemistry, but also like silent intimacy and finding someone that you can kind of just be with without having to like have deep, complex conversations with all the time. And just like fully feeling comfortable in my skin finally.
You use fibers like a lot in your pieces, as like you've said, but for which pieces, like how do you decide like when to use them and how?
It's more of just like if I want to what I'm trying to show. Like, I guess I had a bit of movement with like that I painted, so like imitation of texture, but through something flat. So like between the two figures at the top, there's kind of some movement there, but down here I needed something to tie it together. And also I've really only worked with like thicker string, like yarn and stuff. So this is more of just like thread and then also embroidery thread, because with embroidery thread you can pull it apart and there's actually 6 strings in one because it tricks you, and it's really fun and cool. But yeah, this is a very important piece.
Yeah, I mean, the physicality of your pieces is always astounding. I just feel like the way you connect solid physical imagery with emotion is just amazing.
Why did you decide to include the blood? There's like blood on your...
Because for Halloween we were Siegfried and Roy. They were like these 2 tiger magician trainers. They're really cool. And we made the jackets, which were these like, we got like tux jackets and then put like fabric over them, and it literally took like 1 million hours. But we stayed up very late and talking about many things, and those couple nights where we were up till like 5 in the morning, like making these damn jackets, are just like, I guess, a very fundamental part in like what our relationship has become soon now.
That felt like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Was it? Because I didn't set the timer.
Okay, this is mine. So I wrote my letter to my best friend, and I kind of just talked about like all the adventures that we've been on in the past couple of years since I've met her. And then I was talking about how we went on a trip to Amsterdam last year. And so I decided for my painting that I was going to paint a picture that I took while we were in Amsterdam together. And yeah, I don't know, I just thought that it'd be fun to do something kind of like dedicated to her, and also just like show her like how I appreciate like our memories together and like trying new things with her.
I could immediately tell it was Amsterdam, like the moment I saw it. So I think that's really cool that you captured that place really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love when people paint pictures that they personally took, because I think it just adds another layer of self-expression and like personality to it. It's kind of like an art piece twice over, because you have the photo and now you have the painting that sort of has more of that personal emotional investment in it, and I think that really pulls through in the sort of care that you put into your piece.
Yeah, to add on, I feel like painting a picture you took, it's like really like getting specific with what you see are the important details in like a moment, and like what you really care about.
Also, yeah, I agree. It's very European. Like, you know, the vibe is European. Even the weather, the houses, and yeah, and even the bike. The bike. I don't know. Everything sounds very European to me.
So this is my piece. I wrote a letter to my dad. And here I really tried to like put into images a lot of feelings and stuff that I wanted to express. So it's a little complex, and there's like a lot of things that are going on at the same time. That's also like how I see our relationship. It's a lot of like different things. And yeah, I added words because I feel like it needed like a lot of depth and different also points of view. It's like you have the points of view someone who tries to say something through words, through image. There's also words that refers to music. There's a lot of things. And yeah.
I love how like mixed media it is. You have the flower that's like 3D and it also matches the one you did in acrylic. And I also like how the words are like cut out and they're like in French and it's just very you.
Yeah, I feel like no matter where you look on this piece, there's always something interesting to sort of draw your eye on it. And I think that's a really strong sort of sense of space to have.
Yeah, I love the way that this piece has developed because I know you've been like working on and changing a lot of things, and it really came together when you added like all the like texture with the paper and the words and the way that you like incorporated the words of your actual letter into the piece was really nice.
Oh yeah, the words like on the sides, I rewrote them, and these are the words from the synthesis of the letter, and the words like at the bottom left are more things that represented me or him, or like the relationship and.
Props to you for this. I know you've been working on this for a long time, and as someone who's worked on like pieces with combining many elements and images together, it's really hard to keep it cohesive, and you still have a very good like line of direction, and also the 3D elements are awesome. I'm excited to see what you do next, especially if you use more color. I think that would be cool.
So I wrote my letter to my childhood nanny, and she was kind of like a second mom to me and embraced me a little bit more than some of my, I don't know, she was with me from when I was a few weeks old to only last year, so it's kind of emotional, and it's like I feel a lot of sadness about a lot of our memories together, and that's what I talked about in my letter, and I kind of wanted to just showcase my memories with her throughout my childhood in a nostalgic and almost whimsical way, which is why I made the curtains so colorful, and I tried to use a lot of like bright colors, but I also used a lot of blues, and I wanted to kind of emulate the sadness I feel about it all. And yeah, so I just put different memories from different stages of my time with her in the panels.
I feel like it kind of looks like a storybook, kind of looking through memories, and adds a kind of nostalgic feel, like adds the fact that like she was there for your childhood, so I feel like it adds a kind of childlike aspect of having it kind of with the colorful curtains and making it kind of formatted like it kind of reminds you of like the window maybe just kind of reminds you of like Goldilocks or like an old fairy tale.
I see that. I really like the way that the kind of like pale border around each of the windows kind of like pushes them back and makes them seem more like memories, like they're like a little bit foggy.
Yeah, I tried to use a lot of like colors to dilute the actual scenery, and I made like speckles, so it almost seems like you're looking at like you're imagining something, but it's not like fully clear in your head.
Are those like the first scenes? Are those like actual pictures or like scenes that you remember?
The top right one is a picture, and the bottom one is also a picture, and then the other two are memories.
I really like it. I think it is very ingenious how you framed it with the window, and it's like I'm like peeking into your life. It makes it seem very like heartwarming, very intimate.
I wrote my letter to my mom, and it kind of started out for just like thanking her for being there for me and everything she's done for me and sacrificed for me. And me and my mom are really close. But as I kept writing it, it kind of became more like an apology in a way, because I know it's really hard for her to see me kind of grow up because we spend so much time together and we have such a close relationship. And like, I just kind of wanted to apologize for every time I've like scared her or disappointed her out of like getting older. And you know, our relationship is really good, but it becomes harder to maintain it and keep that like purity as you like get older and turn into an adult. So that's kind of what my letter was about. So this is a photo of me and her from when I was really young, and we used to have these towels in our bathroom before we remodeled it that looked like these, so I painted that in the background, so it's kind of just me being nostalgic about the way my bathroom used to look and the relationship that I had with my mom when I was younger.
I really like that you used your old bathroom tile, especially since now you don't have the same one. I agree with you. I think it makes it feel really nostalgic. It makes I love the whole concept. I was going to ask you that if you didn't clarify it, if you had the tiles in your house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it feels really warm. You can definitely see how much you love your mom. And also, you know, when I first saw it, I immediately recognized your mom. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, like, you just the way you translated it over into your own style was really well. And I think that it really comes across.
I also really like that you use bathroom tiles because I think that's just very symbolic and very cool. And also, your style is very distinct, and I could tell it was yours when I first saw it, which I think is really cool.
Thank you.
Has she seen it?
She saw me working on it when it wasn't finished, but I don't think she's really like taken a good look at it since I finished it. But when I bring it home, eventually I'm gonna like, kind of show her probably, but I don't think I'm gonna show her later.
I know you know.
Who you think this is?
This is mine. I wrote my letter to one of my closest friends and a fellow section leader for the flutes. We met freshman year through marching band because we both played the flute. And so the two halves of the image, I think the right half is supposed to be more when we first met via, you know, our mutual playing the flute, and then the image on the left with like the throne or whatever is based on a picture because we did a band trip to Seattle last year and we went to the Museum of Pop Culture, and so there's a picture of us sitting on the throne. And then the poem in the corner is one that one of our marching band coaches reads to us every year at championships.
I love the whole band theme you have here. It makes it very clear that it's like a very big, vital part of your life. I also love that I could, like, looking at it, instantly tell, like, oh, that one's Suzu.
It's so impressive, that font that you made for the poem. It really, like, this whole vibe to it, especially with, I mean, her playing the flute on, like, the tree and then you reaching your hand up, it's very fairy tale-esque. And it, like, I can, like, imagine, even if you hadn't told me all the details about what this piece is about, I feel like I could have created a whole little fairy tale storyline plot in my head.
What inspired you to do, like, the fairy tale type game?
So our show, we have a theme for the marching band show we do every year, and this year was the Sword and the Stone. So I wanted to like continue that kind of as like our senior year, 4 years of being really close together.
And how much experience did you have with lettering before this?
I'd done like brush pen, but never like the flat tip coded, you know.
Same.
I wrote my letter to my best friend. I met her 2 years ago in marching band in the color guard section. We always practiced near or under this tree together. Yet we practiced there more often during the summer times to get ready during the fall season. I wrote to her about, it was mostly about how I appreciate to her, but then it kind of turned a little bit to like worries about the future, because our section in the march band kind of heavily relies on our seniors, and they're graduating this year, and then me and my friend are going to have to step up and take on the mantle of upperclassmen and help the lowerclassmen.
I love everything about this piece. I think the colors you chose are amazing, and I feel like it has the melancholy vibe, but also seems like a really safe place that you can go to and relax and practice, like you said.
Yeah, I like the dreamlike quality that it has. I don't know. I don't know if it was meant to be sort of impressionist, but it really reminds me of Monet's water lilies. Probably the color palette too, but just everything about this piece feels so magical whimsy. I want to be walking down this path. You can tell that this is a very endeared sort of image to you.
It kind of looks like it could be a still from a movie. I know Disney, or at least in old Disney movies, they have those big photos of they would use a drawing for the background, or in Cinderella it's a big zoom out of the castle. And this, I guess it kind of does remind me of the Sleeping Beauty, their little forest that they're in. But it really is so whimsical, and I also like that you're not, you and your friend aren't pictured in it. I guess it kind of leaves it to the imagination of each viewer to immerse themselves in the painting. So, and it just adds a bunch of different meanings to it. I think it's really cool.
It's you could just walk in there yourself.
What medium did you use?
Paint, and I sometimes dilute it with water, so that on the moss, I kind of dilute it so you can still see the ground go really green.
Okay. I feel this kind of goes in line with your concentration. I know we're not talking about that right now, but I'm going to talk about it. Because you did mention that you enjoy doing settings and also just kind of surreal, but at the same time, very much something the brain would conjure. This is kind of art that requires the viewer and requires the audience to complete it, so I don't know, it feels like we're looking into a little window, a choose your own adventure kind of window. Where do you want to go?
I think we're at time.
Yeah.
This is mine. I wrote the letter to my boyfriend, and it just started off as casual conversation type of letter, and then it got kind of more sentimental, just randomly. And I was I started talking about our trip to Catalina, and just kind of more scenery and how we should go on a trip again, because I value nature a lot. Yeah, and the quote at the bottom was, it took so long to find all of those words, but that was part of, I think, near the end of the letter, and I didn't use a reference photo or anything. This is kind of just I wanted it to come off as a memory or dream type of scenery view.
Yeah, the way you use the oil pastels really makes it seem like that, especially with how you smudged it and made it blurry, but then also put more over it and then didn't smudge it so that it pops out more. And I like how it fades into the underpainting. It definitely has the memory vibe you were going for.
Yeah, I like that you didn't use a reference picture, because I think that haziness of the way you remember it comes through, and also the kind of haziness I think is very Californian also, but I really love the quote that you put at the bottom. I feel it shows how isolated, or in a good way, you feel with him, I guess.
I wrote my letter to my sister, surprise. I honestly didn't have a sort of direction or a specific topic I was going through, thinking about when I was writing it, and I think that transferred over to my painting. I didn't have a direction I was going in. I just had this baby photo that my mom had literally just sent to me a week prior, and it kind of all came together when I realized that this was probably the moment that I was closest with my sister, like the moment in time, because we have, you know, a pretty sizable age gap. So ultimately, I don't think we really know each other. So my letter was kind of like a get to know you letter. I didn't really know what I was doing when I was painting this. I paint majority with gouache. And this piece is also in gouache, but I'd never done portraiture like that before. And also, I've never painted a baby, so I kind of struggled. And I think you can kind of see the struggle that I had between my subject and my medium, and, you know, the message I was trying to portray throughout the painting. And as the king of overanalyzing things, I kind of applied that same perspective to my relationship with my sister, where it's kind of, you know, sometimes it's hyper-focused, like in the center with the faces, and then, you know, the flowers, I kind of gave up halfway through, I'm not gonna lie, but the flowers are sort of more suggestions of flowers than it is a straight-up painting of a flower, so, yeah.
They're so bold though. They're like framing the entire
Yeah,
piece.
I had a lot of negative space to cover.
I like how the flowers are blurry, but then you and your sister are in detail. I think it like adds like perspective, and it just puts you in focus. Also, the baby looks really good, don't worry.
And the portrait.
Thank you.
It looks amazing.
Yeah.
This is mine. Getting a letter project, I took it as an opportunity to write a letter to someone that I never intended to send to at all. It was sort of just like me like venting for once about something I never talked about with them or never wanted to. And like just the accumulation of all of this like resentment between us that I wanted to go like unspoken. How like I'm in focus and stuff, and like how the other figure is like has like a wolf face, is to show like how like my perception of them has warped over the years and stuff, and how like I still try to see them and talk to them and stuff despite it, and despite all like the resentment I like hold on to and how it burdens me.
I like the little, oh sorry, you can go. I like the little details in the back. I like the little bit of letter that's in the corner, the bottom right corner.
Yeah.
I feel like it adds a lot of, it's without saying it explicitly, I feel like it implies that what's going on between you two, I guess from your perspective. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Your like texture and your like lighting and the choice of colors is so good. I remember during like the halfway we were all talking and like we kind of unanimously like decided that you should keep the background like blank red, but the textures and like what you added to it brings so much more depth. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I liked the red in the background, and how it wasn't a perfect red. I liked the noise it created, and then I wanted more of that. So while I finished like all just like the rough rendering with the gouache, I added color pencils, but the watercolor pencils and stuff, to give it more texture and make a lot of things pop out more. I like this one. I like the wood background.
So this one's mine. I kind of took a different approach with the letter though. I didn't write it to like a different person. I wrote it to like a younger version of myself. Almost kind of describing the differences between like my childhood self and now, and like different experiences I had and memories that I now look back on and like I'm very fond of, and one of them being like opening up like a Lala Loopsy doll on Christmas. Like it's just one of the more prominent memories in my childhood, so that's just like what I decided to paint. I used acrylic.
I like how matte the hair is. I like that even though like everything else is really shiny, it isn't, and I feel like it makes it stand out more, and it makes it like kind of dreamlike.
I'm gonna be honest, it just had so much detail in it, I didn't want it.
That's also valid.
Thanks.
No, I think, I feel like it adds to sort of the atmosphere about, the childish sort of memories, the quality that you're trying to portray, too. And also, I had this exact Lala Lucy doll as a child, so seeing it. Well, yeah, but, just, I don't know if you watched the show, but there was, me and that Lala Lucy show.
Caitlin?
No, background can also be interpreted as when you're playing with dolls as a child. It's kind of like a space for you to create an entire world yourself. It's not really given an environment or boundaries to put this doll or whatever personality and story that you're giving it. It's very much you create it all yourself. So you get a blank slate besides the character.
Okay, we're gonna have less than a minute.
This one's mine.
Keep going.
My dad. It's just kind of talking about Lake Tahoe. It's where my grandma used to live before she moved down here this year. So I just kind of talked about how I want to go back, and I just try to capture pretty unrealistically though how pretty I think Lake Tahoe is. I guess it's kind of cute. Thank you.
It's really beautiful. I like how you made it a landscape, but you put it in portrait so that you could see the whole sky and the sunset. And I like how you did the stars with paint splatter.
The stars look amazing.
I'm really obsessed with the texture, too. I think, I don't know, just looking at it up close, it just... I just like it.
Okay, I know we need to wrap up. Thank you, everyone.